Hi, and welcome to Strong Enough Podcast, your relationship wellness podcast. I'm Claudia, your host, and I'm so excited about today's guest for a couple different reasons. First, he's my first official guest, so I'm really excited to have him here today. But second, I'm super stoked because he's going to talk to us about a topic that he's never really talked about before, his long-distance relationship with his girlfriend, Erin. This guy is the COO of Silver Spear Security, and he's also the security director for Shinedown. Additionally, he hosts 3 of his own podcasts. Please help me in welcoming John Guarnieri. Well, John, it's great to have you here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your amazingly busy schedule to chat with me today about a topic that I'm guessing and I'm hoping that no one has really ever talked to you about before on a podcast.
Yeah, it's weird because every time I do like Spear Talk or the stuff with Zach and Paul and See Me Unknown or Scatterbrain with Justin, it's all topics we want to talk about, I guess. Like I control the narrative, and the one times I'm always caught off guard, especially on Spear Talk, is when the guest will be like, "So tell me about you," and it's sometimes. Obviously, I can talk about myself and what I've done and what I'm doing, my thoughts, my ideas, but there's always part of it where, man, what if this guest asks me something where I'm like, so tell me about the mental health when the last campaign with Obama, or, hey, you haven't seen your girlfriend in a year. How do you feel about this? Because you're talking about – I'm just like I don't talk about that stuff, but I think it's important stuff that a show like yours or a podcast like yours, I can actually talk about that and not feel like it's out of place.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, being willing to do that. And so you do have at least a heads up on the topic. We are going to talk about your long distance relationship today and how you keep that going and how you make it a success. But I think to talk about that, we do have to talk a little bit about your background, which is super, super unique. So you started out in the Secret Service.
Yes. And yep. So,
and then you transitioned into security and music. So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
So in 2004 and 2008, I went to Norwich University, which is a military college in Vermont, just 45 minutes south of Burlington. And I did Navy ROTC there for 4 years. Loved it. Loved waking up in the morning, reveille, the PT, all the marching, loved it all. And junior year, 2007, my friend who graduated the year prior was now in the Secret Service doing the motorcade unit with the presidential limos and the Beast and all that stuff. Said, John, you would love this. Put all your eggs in a basket. Do this thing. Because at the time I was like FBI, DEA, ATF, whatever one of those stupid government 3-letter, 4-letter things were. Like, no, this is right up my alley. I want to be good guy versus bad guys. I love all that stuff. And so I did that after 8 months of background checks, my polygraph of 2 days, PT tests, psych eval stuff, all that stuff. Then you get to the training center in Georgia. You got to pass that after 4 months. And then once you pass that, you have to do another 3 to 4 months up in Beltsville, Maryland, which is the James Rowley Training Center for the Secret Service. That's all specific to the Secret Service. And so I graduate all that and I do all that stuff. The last campaign in 2012, I was home 30 days that year. And I kind of got burnt out. At the time I was married. I subsequently went through a divorce, was drinking more than I should have. Not at work or stuff like that, but when I had 2 days off, that first day off, I was like, I just need to drink. And my health, my fitness, so I was like, I gained too much weight that I didn't want, obviously. I just felt kind of down on myself. And so to push it forward like 6 months, a year later, I meet my current CEO now, Chris Loudon, in a backstage at a show. I think it was actually Nickelback, Bush, My Darkest Days. That combination of those bands. I see him, I'm talking to him, and he's like, man, that's so cool what you do. And we change info. And I'm like, hey, the minute I get bored, or not bored, but really burnt out, not because I don't love what I do, the security, the protection, and all that, just the politics and just to kind of change the scenery because it is daunting dealing with all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure. So in 2014, I jumped ship. We rebranded his company to Silver Spear Security. And it's been 6+ years since, and it's been going really great.
I do want to hit on one thing you said. How nerve-wracking was a 2-day polygraph?
Super Because like you going into it, you kind of do research on. Obviously, you see the movies, TV shows. These are whatever, but they'll ask the same question like 20 times, but rephrase the words. Oh, you would know this, but they rephrase the words or change the question around, or they add stuff. But then they'll try and catch you off guard with a random. Have you ever had sexual thoughts about animals? Or like different questions where it's like, yeah, we've done enough. Like this person's a good person, but let's see how he reacts to where's his baseline on where he's telling the truth and all this. And I was just like, whatever. But like the government, as you would know, with different. It's 3 p.m. Oh, day's over. Come back tomorrow. I'm just like, what? So I was just super. But the next day it was like just kind of formalities, I think. But yeah, it's super, super. Super cool. Like it's kind of cool to say you went through a polygraph like that, but yeah, it's. I don't know if I would want to go through it again. Not about truth or telling the lie, but just sitting there, just literally on pins and needles.
It's so stressful, even though when you know you're telling the truth, it's so stressful.
Well,
so
you have two people looking at you. The first day, I had a good cop, bad cop guy, and I'm just like, dude, come on, I've seen this movie. Like, stop. Like you've already talked to my 45 neighbors everywhere I've lived, my priest, where I've worked. Like you already like to stop.
I am glad to hear that you also got the animal question, because I got the animal question and I was like, what has somebody told them about me?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
To even bring up this question.
Right. And I'm just like, what? Are you kidding me right now? I want to say I shot one raccoon because it was attacking the chickens. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it's super crazy. But you also think about these people that actually have done this that comes out in these polygraphs. It's like there are really sick people in this world.
That's true, because somewhere somebody had to make that question be asked in the beginning. So I guess we need to be thankful it's on there.
Yeah, I guess.
Some reason. Yeah, let's steer away from that. So it's been 6+ years that you've been with Silver Spear, and from my perspective, it almost seems like you're the face of that company. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say, because this is why. My CEO Chris Lauda is the best. Like in terms of a father figure, and obviously I have a great father, but in terms of I would say corporate security father, like he is. He's done it all. I mean, he's in the book The Dirt. He was with Motley Crue, all these bands and stuff through their heydays, and here he is still kicking ass with Nickelback, Justin Bieber, Post Malone, all this stuff. And so for me to kind of jump and work with him has been amazing. I'm learning every day. And like we have a new office now in Florida with the training center. So our weekly calls and stuff it's just super cool to see how it's kind of blown up the way it has. But he's also that generation where what's Instagram? Why are we on Twitter? And so when I jumped over, I'm like, no, trust me. Like, we need to hire a social media person, Justin Press, to do our social media, because in this day and age, you need to stay relevant. And I think what was important is through the COVID-19 stuff, is that a lot of people, we looked super busy. What we were, because there's a lot of state security and protest stuff. And so that aspect of the security world was very busy. But the importance of social media to show that, hey, we might not be on the road right now, but we can still talk about cool topics. We can get serious. We can be funny. And so the social media aspect is a huge part of that. And I just I have no problem doing that. I have no problem doing the Zoom meetings or reaching out, being the face, because I believe in the brand. And I think that's important to have one person or someone who works for that company be the face of it. Right. But I have great staff. I have great people that with their jobs with events and hiring and firing and all that stuff, and just to kind of work with them, it's super cool. And I think a lot of times, I think people, and I just had a Zoom meeting the other day because we picked up this really big client in San Francisco, and I'd never met this guy, his assistant, and we were just talking, and he asked me about like this mentality of security and how I'm able just to kind of say what I say. And I go, listen, there are security professionals out there who treat security as a 9-to-5 gig. It's a paycheck. And not to knock them, because they have mouths to feed, they have a roof on their head, they got bills to pay. I totally get that. But where you get the difference between myself and these people is that this is my lifeblood. This is what I love. This isn't a paycheck to me. I could do what I do with no money because I believe in it. And so for me, that's kind of why, again, I have no problem being the face. That's why we started the Spear Talk podcast, the onset of COVID, because we can at least get out there and push what we want to say and talk to really cool people like yourself about different topics, from domestic abuse to martial arts to wildlife conservation to the veterans VA hospitals and everything like that. So it's super cool. And being the face of something like that, it's super important to me, yet it's super like humbling too. Like, it's super cool.
And during COVID, you have also become the face of a couple other things as well, because I think you're doing now at least 3 podcasts. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm doing 3, and I recorded 3 other ones last week for other people. I have your awesome one this week. I got another one today, I think, with Jason Piccolo. I'm recording another episode with him. A lot of times people are always just like, Joe, how do you do it? Like, how are you like staying like sane right now? Well, here's the thing. I love chaos. I love madness. And I always love the idea of pushing myself further. If I could go 1 minute longer or an hour longer, or just to kind of build up that stamina, because again, I believe in what I talk about. I'm very protective of what I represent and who I represent, and whatever I can do to kind of talk about this stuff. Like, I love it. I think people just kind of, they get kind of pigeonholed where they just kind of accept what they're doing now, but you could always push yourself a little bit further. And I try to do that. But yeah, I have 3 active podcasts that I'm literally part of, and I'm always jumping on other people's.
Yeah, that's awesome, because you have so many interesting stories to tell, I think, in so many different arenas, that I know I appreciate you being willing to do that.
There's some too where it's like, I guess I have the experience and different craziness going on with like my background currently when I'm doing all this stuff, but I can also have no problem unabashedly being myself. Wear your heart on your sleeve and just do what you want to do, obviously safely and whatever. But I'm going to live the life I want to live the best way I can. And if that's me being more outgoing and whatever. And what's funny, it's been a year since obviously the pandemic first thing. And I used to do these, well, I still kind of do them, but these Instagram lives where I would be drinking or playing music or Q&As or just doing these really bizarre, stupid things. Well, I just do it out of boredom, and you know what? I got some Coors here or thing of Jack Daniels. Let's make some drinks and just have fun with my followers. And it turned out like I get these messages when I first started doing it, but still do, going with screenshots saying, hey, thank you for this. I was having a bad week, or I was suicidal, or my depression was really bad because I lost a family member or my job, or we were all home stuck in the houses, right, for those 6 months or whatever. And people say, hey, you really helped. I could look forward to the end of the week on a Saturday night knowing you're doing this. And I never did it for that, but it kind of, for me, I had to take a step back and go, man, you have no idea the joy you can bring other people just by being yourself. And so I guess I would encourage people to smile, to laugh, to show emotion, get angry, but your actions, people look to your actions. And I think people resonate in different ways, or however you handle yourself. I think it's super important to we all have a duty to just kind of put ourselves out there, because you don't know how it benefits yourself, but how it can also benefit someone else that needed that day.
I think that's so true. And I think what's so interesting about you is that people see you, as this security director, this presence, who's very stern and serious. And then to get that other side of you, because I have seen some of those Instagram lives, very interesting. If you have not seen them, be on the lookout for the next one John does. But I think it's cool that you are willing to present that goofy, true side of yourself. Yeah, there's
a yin and yang. I think so many people are just like, and I know some great security people they're just like, I'm not going to say locked on, because when I'm working, I'm very locked on. But there are people that they'll go through their life just being that person. And I think we all have these personalities inside of us that, for me, I need to let out that goofy, stupid, dumb, laugh at my own jokes, humor, because it only strengthens my other personalities too, and vice versa. And so that for me, it's a great release just to kind of get it out. And I can still be great at my job and have still be that funny, goofy person, because I think people respect you more, because now they're like, oh, he can be great, but the minute you mess up, he'll snap. And so that's kind of why. But it's a beautiful yin and yang of just, I think everyone has these really cool personalities, but they're just afraid to either put them out or talk about them, but just be yourself. And I think you'll kind of strengthen yourself if you do that.
I think that is what it is. People are afraid to do it. You know, they're afraid to show that goofy side or that yang side to themselves. So I appreciate you doing that. I think it does mean a lot to the people that kind of know your work to see that other side of you. So thank you for that.
Oh, awesome.
So I know that Silver Spear works with a lot of different events, different groups of people. But one of the big things you guys do work with is bands and musicians. So is that an avenue that you chose for yourself to work with bands in Silver Spear, or that kind of got chosen for you?
I think because my security background was the Secret Service and protection. It was a match made in heaven. I think that's why ultimately I told Chris, hey, when I come over, we'll overhaul the events, the cruises, we'll do all this crazy training stuff. But when I have the opportunity to go on the road, and I'm grateful that I could Nickelback, cool. Shinedown, cool. Smith & Myers, cool. Whoever, I have the luxury of picking who I go out with in the sense that I believe in these clients specifically, and I want to work with them and do what I do for them. But yeah, I think I love the physical aspect of being out there, the advancing, the handling of day-to-day activities, the security aspect of shows. I love that, being hands-on with it. So it only felt natural to kind of do that kind of smooth transition, because protection's protection. I don't care if you're watching your house, your cat, your neighbor, your loved one, or a band. Like, you still have to have the same principles in place. It was just obviously a little bit different. Where touring with a band is a little bit different than touring with the Department of State or Obama or that type of stuff.
Absolutely. So when you're out there with your bands or musicians, you're kind of the gatekeeper, I would say.
Yes.
So, John, do you get your own groupies? Do you get the people that want to get to you to get to the band, or just that want to get to you because you're John and you're badass in your own right?
What's really cool is that when during like the meet and greets and stuff like that, obviously people know me. They know me more so now, but I'm not there for them, if that makes sense. And I don't mean that to come off as harsh, but I'm there to make sure they can enjoy the time they have with these bands and guests, the artists. So I'm very friendly. Like, I don't do any like hugs like that. Like, I don't, obviously, unless I know you, and that type of thing. But again, I'm not part of the show. I help the show move forward. And so there's a fine line between hanging out and, like, especially days off and stuff. I'm not there to hang out with fans or that type of thing. Now, again, obviously, if I know you, I'll be nice to you. Like, I've had some of the best conversations with fans that in European street markets that I recognize. They come up to me, hey, John. And it's like, stuff like that's really cool. It's organic. They're not looking to gain anything. And here's the thing, too. I'm also not going to, oh, yeah, I'll bring you to the band. Like, no, like, okay, I'll ask the band. And then, oh, you want to photograph the show? Cool, let me ask the band. For me, I don't care, but this isn't my call. So there's stuff like that where there's a fine line. But all the Shinedown fans specifically, they're all great. Like, there's no issues. They know what the lines are to cross and not to cross. And again, I'm just a part of that to help facilitate that fan band atmosphere. So
I'm sure Aaron would be happy hearing that you're very businesslike at the shows. Aaron is your girlfriend.
Yes.
How long have you guys been together?
Oh, God. It's probably the toughest question I've gotten in 2 months.
Well, I'm not going to ask your anniversary date, so don't worry about
that. So I'll tell the whole story. I met her. I was in Saskatoon with Nickelback, and this was in end of September, I think 2014. Or no, 20. Jesus.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, end of 2017, I believe. It was in Saskatoon. We were at the hotel, the Radisson Hotel in Saskatoon, and she was working the coffee shop at the hotel lobby, and we just got off the bus, and I was I was doing venue security. Chris was out with the band, so he had just somewhere else and whatever. So when the venue security, the night before was a long drive, and so we had a good time on the bus and with the core like production tour manager, we had a really good time. And I stumbled off the bus, shorts, t-shirt. it was 20, 30 degrees. Stumbled in the hotel lobby. Room keys weren't ready yet because the hockey team was in town. But we'd stayed at this hotel before, and I love Saskatoon as a day off city because it's a really cool sushi place. I'm like, oh, cool, whatever. I'm walking the lobby, and I sit down with our production assistant and the hospitality girl, and we're just shooting the shit, drinking coffee in the lobby, and wait for the room keys. And I look over, I see someone over there where she is by the coffee. I'm like, I'm going to go get my coffee, whatever. So I walk over, and I see her. I kind of like fumble. I don't drop anything, but I get kind of caught off guard because I wasn't anticipating Erin, and I didn't know her name at the time, but her being there and just being like, I was like, oh wow, like you're really pretty. So I just came off as very like dumb, and I don't know if part of it because I was still hungover, maybe, but I just came off as very whatever. So I did the coffee. I go back, sit down. And I'm talking to our two production assistants, and I'm like, man, I should have said more. Like, she's super cool. They're like, why don't you go say something? I'm like, oh, this is stupid. Like, I'm not that guy. Like, I've met so many people around the world that I've never, not once have I ever been that person to be like, oh, here's my number. Oh, are you on Facebook? Ooh. So I'm just like, whatever, like, stupid. So I go up to the hotel room, get the room key, and then I'm like, oh my God, I should go down because I've never had this feeling before. So I go down and I do it. But she's not there. I'm like, oh God. And so whatever, I go back up to the room, and then obviously I come back down because of other stuff, get stuff off the bus, and she's there again. And I'm like, hey, like, I don't normally do this, so I apologize if I come off as super goofy and stupid right now, but if you're around later, like let's grab dinner or something, or if you want to come to the show, whatever. And obviously she would know because she knows what band's coming and she loves Nickelback. But nothing happened that night. Like I ended up going to the movies. I think I actually saw John Wick 2 with our crew guys, which was badass. So I was already excited.
So
but
good.
The whole time during the movie, I'm kind of like, man, I wonder if she's going to text me. And sure enough, later that night, she told us where to go for food and dinner. And yeah, she'd love to come to the show. And she came to the show. And from there, we just kind of kept in touch the rest of the Canadian tour, texting every day. Like I started to fall for her. And then the last show of the tour was in Vancouver. So I flew her to the Vancouver show the day of, and she came to the show. And then the next morning, I fly home to Massachusetts, and she flies back to Saskatoon. It was one of those weird type of, wow, is this just going to end here? And then we kept in touch, and we've been together ever since. So,
wow,
yeah, October 5th was the Saskatoon show. So we technically call that, I think the
your anniversary,
the anniversary date. Yeah.
So she's Canadian.
Yes.
And how often do you guys? Let's talk pre-pandemic first.
Pre-pandemic, every month or every 2 months. Like she was at the time. I know there's some whatever because the pandemic is affecting Canada a lot differently. So gymnastics is obviously slowed down. But she was on Team Canada. She's a champion gymnast, and so every 2 months or so, every 2 to 3 months, we'd see each other. She'd come down here, see in Massachusetts. Or I'd go up to Canada, or she'd meet me if I had 2-3 days off on a show. She'd come down to the show and hang out for those 2 days or stuff like that. So it was super easy. She respected my schedule, and obviously I respected her schedule because she was doing competitions in Austria, all over Canada, everywhere. So she knows the travel gig too. But yeah, when the pandemic hit, that border is still shut down, and
right.
There's loopholes here and there where she could come down here or up there, but it's just like no one has 14 days to just force quarantine where it's like, it's not like you don't want to do that. You can spend the rest of your life with this person, but in this current situation, you can't do it because there's work, there's other stuff. Like she works full time too. So there's other stuff where it's kind of, they put you in pigeonholes. And even what they did recently is that if you go back to Canada from somewhere else, you have to stay in one of these 4 cities for 3 nights at a hotel at your cost before you fly home. And it's like, what do you like? Again, we talked about this off the record, but like this whole mentality with COVID, like stop.
Right.
And so it's just like financially, sure, I could do it, like no problem. But it's like, why put someone through that? And so I'm not gonna lie, the first couple of months of it were I was super. I'm not gonna say depressed. I would say I was super bummed out. And I think there were times when we would nitpick each other. I don't know if it was for the attention, but not necessarily start fights, but just kind of like I would take out my anger towards the situation and be like, this is so stupid. What are we doing? Like, what, you can't even come down for my birthday, and for selfish reasons.
Right.
But it took me that after a couple of months where obviously we talk every day, again, with technology, Snapchats, Facebook Live or Facebook or FaceTiming.
Yep.
So we can always see each other talk. That never changed. But it took me like 2 months after, probably in March or May or whatever of the pandemic year in 2020, to be like, you know what? There are men and women who are together or serving overseas where they have families, they're in hellholes, and I can't even comprehend what they're going through. And here I am bitching that my life is tough, and I'm not that type of person. I'm like, what are we doing? So we both realized, we always say, hey, this could be much worse. We fight through this, we stick to this, and we get this done. But yeah, it's super different. A lot of people are very they're like, how do you do it? Well, you do it. If you believe in something or someone, you do what you can to make it work, and that's kind of what we've been doing.
So you guys still have not seen each other?
I have not seen her for a year and 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
insane.
Yeah. So I guess the border's opening up in end of next month or something, time is May, which she'll be able to come down. So we have plans in place. But again, now work's starting up again. So it's just like, it's all great problems to have. Like, I'm forever grateful. Like, I will never but yeah, there's other paperwork we're looking at now too, where it's like, hey, maybe we do have to get engaged or expedite some stuff, where it's kind of at least get the paperwork going. Where it's like now it's like, because the wording is, there's not only businesses and families suffering because they can't go to their summer houses or their businesses of work or everything like that, but define significant other. Like, why do I have to be married to this person to consider this my life partner? It's just the wording like that, where it's kind of like, I get on paper why it helps cut down the curve of whatever, but here's the thing. If social distancing and masks were working, where does it matter where these people are coming from? And so I'm just like, again, that was more of the anger. I was like, what can we do? Like, I know people to go, like, we can find loopholes here. It's like, at the end of the day, like, you know what, take a step back and just be grateful that you have someone to even have these conversations with.
Right, absolutely. Do you think it was a little bit easier for you guys to deal with the pandemic because your relationship started long distance?
Yes. So the long distance, I definitely think helps because we were already 2 years into it, just doing it. And so for us, that's not really a problem. And plus the work schedules in normal years, our schedule, I'm seeing her in 4 different states I didn't think I would be seeing her in, or going to these different Canadian cities with her or whatever. But I do think they're moving forward, like, there'll be more of an effort on both our parts to really put the time in to spend time with that person in their hometown or whatever, just to kind of get away from the madness when we can. So, yeah.
So do you think in general it's been better or worse as far as, to me, it seems very romantic and romanticized that, oh, I get to see this person in this city or this city, and you're kind of always traveling and always in a new place together. What do you think about that? Do you think that makes things better, or is it kind of worse that, oh, we just don't get to stop and slow down and be at home?
Yeah, and I love those moments because I have no problem just laying in bed or just watching a movie or just eating a bag of popcorn, like just being goofy in the yard. Like that for me, those are the best moments. But when it comes time to different cities and stuff, like you can still have those experiences with that person in these different cities. Yeah, it's not your home or her home or whatever, but you can still try to do restaurants, like as well as the cool things where it's like, I've been to this restaurant, but hey, you find a cool restaurant, maybe we'll enjoy it together or something like that. And so, yeah, it's just different stuff. I mean, you make it work. Like whether I collect magnets, so I'm always getting magnets that represent times we spent together in cities. So yeah, there's little things like that we do too.
That's super cool. I also collect magnets, so I get that.
Yeah, nice.
So you have kind of always been in the position of a long distance relationship. I mean, pretty much your entire working and adult life, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, what does a normal relationship look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I have plenty of friends and family. They're obviously married couples or dating a long time, and I never get jealous about that stuff. Like, I wish there are times where we're all together, where I could have Erin there, or I'm sure vice versa for her. I'm not going to speak for her, but I would assume she'd say yes. Yeah, where it's like, man, I wish I could be out here hiking with my girlfriend, or at the concert with my girlfriend, or out to dinner with our group. I also have no problem being the third wheel either. So I am more than happy ruining other people's nights too. So no, but I mean, for me, I just the ups and downs, the little things. Like I don't know. Like I always envision doing yard work together, or housework, or Sunday drives, or just doing stuff together. Where it's like, yeah, you can have bad days and you can have great days, but at least someone there to kind of talk to for advice. Or, I mean, for me, that'd be the ideal relationship. It doesn't have to be, and having a sip of coffee at the Eiffel Tower. Like for me, sure, that's cool, but it's just the little moments, no matter where we are, for however fleeting the moment is. That for me is, I think, what defines an ideal relationship.
Nice. What would you say has been the biggest challenge for you guys in starting out with a long distance relationship? You know, I think a lot of people, they meet and they're together for a period of time, and then there's travel involved or whatever. But right from the get-go, you guys
think the first thing is trust, because you don't really know the person, right? And so you kind of have to tell them about your life. And so, funny story, one of the first things, because I didn't tell, obviously when you meet somebody, you're like, I used to be married. I'm divorced. Like, you don't say that because it's like you don't want to scare this person. Now, but for me, though, I'm very open. And it took me like a couple of weeks after, but hey, just so you're aware, yes, I am head over heels for you, but I think it's only fair to you to let you know, hey, I was married. And it took me a while to even be like, oh God, she's gonna be scared off, because I think there is a stigma of going through divorce, and especially there was. I mean, now I think there's so many people don't value marriage, the idea of it, that it's just kind of thrown away. But for me, I was kind of like, oh man, this is like, I'm gonna be super bummed if she, but I'll understand it. But she was super. She's like, well, stuff happens for a reason, and tell me about like what happened and stuff. And it's just, she's very welcoming, like very supportive of, hey, your life is your life, and your past is your past. We're here now, and hearing that stuff like really reaffirmed, like, oh, cool, this girl is really awesome.
Nice. So you said, a lot of people don't value marriage anymore, or kind of that concept. And, I hear a lot of, especially younger people say, oh, I'm never getting married. What's the point? It's just a piece of paper. So having been divorced, what are your feelings on that now?
Well, I would say to those people, you're going based, like, I don't know, like that's a whole other thing. For me, I don't have any regrets. And so, for me, as long as I'm like, well, man, maybe I'll never get married again, or I'll never find this other person. I think that's just stupid, selfish thinking. Like there's literally someone on this earth for someone else, and you just gotta find that person. Whether it's finding yourself first before this person finds you, or vice versa. But that option is there. Everyone can be happy, and they deserve to be happy. But I wouldn't. If I never got married, I never would have met Erin. And so it took me a while to realize that, where it's like I had to get married. I had to get divorced, and I had to change jobs to get this step. And maybe one thing led to another. Maybe it was just the right time, the right place, the right time for us. But there's nothing I would change in terms of the idea of the marriage divorce. Yeah, I was sad afterwards because I was like, oh God, I let my family down and grandparents. Like I come from old school family where it's at the time I was the first divorce in the family.
Wow.
So I was like, oh God. But like, it's again, when you have great friends and family, it's like, hey, it's part of life. You can only control so much. Whatever. Like, it wasn't a messy divorce. Like, there's no fighting over anything. Like, there's nothing bad about that. But it was just, you know what? It happened. And that was really cool to have like the family and stuff, friend support, whatever. But yeah, that's basically how I feel about it.
I think you have a great attitude. I completely agree with you in that everything that we go through has brought us to the place that we are.
Right.
And I know sometimes that's a cliche way to look at things because nobody wants to go through the really hard stuff. But if we didn't go through those things, we wouldn't be exactly who we are today and where we are today. So I really appreciate that. That concept from you and that's kind of what you live by. So what advice would you give to other long distance couples, people who maybe have met and are together and now one is starting to travel or the other is, or maybe they're like you guys and, meet somewhere and immediately go off in their own direction. But, what do you think are the keys to success?
Honesty is going to be huge because you're not with that person all the time. And especially if you're starting out, you have to build that trust up with being honest. Tell them about your past. Tell them about stuff that you think could, if it ever came out, could affect stuff moving forward. Whether it was, hey, I used to be married, or I actually have a third kid, or it's that type of stuff where you have to talk about that. But value the time you have with each other, and don't ever go to bed. Don't go to bed mad at that person. I think it's so easy to go to bed pissed off. And don't get me wrong, there could be situations where you are pissed off and there's a rightful reason. He said something, she said something, whatever. And so I get that, but the easiest thing you can do is go to bed mad. And the people that I think don't realize that are the ones that if I'm mad or say there's something, it could be work, it could be anything in general. I need to 30 minutes before you fall asleep. Hey, just decompress and maybe take a shower and say, hey, put this in my head. This isn't that bad. We're gonna get this better. And I wake up the next morning feeling okay, ready to go. Like, we've moved on. Let's get this done. I think it's super easy for people to go to bed pissed off because then they're going to wake up pissed off and they don't solve anything. So now they just put 8 to 10 hours in between the reaction to what they're feeling now. It's like you accomplished nothing. And so I think it's super, super vital to, hey, let your feelings out, get emotional, cry, laugh, scream, but talk through it. And I think 9 times out of 10, you're gonna rescue or help solve that problem. Where instead of putting a piece of tape on a leaky bow of a ship, you're gonna put a new piece of wood there, and it's gonna keep floating. So I think for me, those are number 2: honesty, and just don't go to bed angry.
And those sound like they would be great pieces of advice for really any relationship, not just long distance, but pretty much anybody.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing too, the long distance, you're in that relationship, so you have to make it work if you want it to work. And so the daily calls, the texting, the reminders, the goofy videos you can send out. I mean, technology now is super beneficial when used in this way for relationships, because if you can't see someone, or some of my best friends' relationships are people from out in California to Australia to Japan to Russia, where it's like, hey, we can still be great friends and put our feelings out and laugh and talk shit. So that stuff's awesome. That's just so super great. But yeah, long distance, maybe they're hard. I don't know. I don't think nothing's too hard in life. So, I mean, we're putting a man on Mars soon, so I think we can figure out a long-term relationship if you want it to. Here's the thing. Relationships should always be 100-100. The 50-50 bullshit is stupid because it should be at 200% total. If you're doing 50-50, 100% out of 200, you're halfway there, and you're not going to do anything. So everyone should be putting in 100 on each side. And I think when you get that point, you'll have a successful relationship. It doesn't even have to be long-term either.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that 100-100. That is perfect, because the 50-50, then you're only doing half.
Right. It's like, why put in half the work? If you're only putting the half yourself, how do you anticipate or expect this person to put their 100% in? It's not fair.
What would you say to people who think the perfect relationship isn't work? There's people out there with that misconception that, oh, well, if this was a great relationship, it's easy. It doesn't take any work. It should be effortless.
I would say stop watching TMZ, these Hollywood weddings that are people broadcasted. And here's the thing: those couples, they might be happy, and I think it's different because they have to put their stuff out there in social media to appease their sides and their people. But I don't know. Like I don't know. It's a really good question. I don't. I don't even know how to say it. I don't know.
I mean, I've never seen that effortless relationship, I think in the beginning.
Right. Like, where do you, there's effort somewhere, coming from somewhere. Where do you put that out? Like, I don't know. If something is effortless, you're really good at it. Now I look at like those high-end athletes or these authors that write these incredible books every day of the week. So their efforts, they're putting the effort in, but it looks so flawless because they're so good to it. So maybe these perfect relationships, they put the time in 20, 30 years. I love the Goldie Hawn, Russell Crowe. Never got married. You never hear any drama. They've been together, 30, 40 years. And I would think that's a flawless relationship. But you never hear anything about it, so maybe that's why. But there's nothing wrong with having a relationship that isn't flawless either. And so your relationship imperfections, maybe they're perfect for you guys. And so maybe, I don't know, like it's very interesting. I don't know if I'd want to be in a flawless, perfect relationship. I think, because then you're not, what are your goals to get better every day as a couple, right? It just seems really weird.
It seems like that would get really boring as well.
Yes.
I think if everything's so perfect every day.
Like, I don't know if I'd want that Stepford Wives relationship where everyone's robotic. Oh, wake up, make coffee, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't want that. But here's the thing. I'm also not a relationship expert. Maybe there are people that want that and need that. And if they're happy, you know what? If happiness is for these people, then I'm all for their happiness.
I think that's very true. One thing I always say when it comes to relationships and the work that I do with domestic abuse is that we can't define success for another person. So, I can't tell you what equals success for you or what outcome is deemed successful for you. I can only determine that for myself. So I guess that's a great way to look at it, is we can't really deem what is a successful relationship for somebody else. As long as it's happy and healthy and safe,
right?
Then, looking from the outside, I guess that would be a success for each person.
Yeah,
so,
I think we all deserve to have that happiness. And if you have to go through some years of yuck and muck and bullshit, like, if you want to find that happiness, you have to go through that. So do it, and don't. Sure, you'll have to take a step back. Oh man, I can't do this today. That's okay, but you got to do it eventually. So get a head start.
That's a great piece of advice. So what's next for you and Aaron?
Well, we had these plans in our head about like possible engagement, we had plans in our head like timelines, because I knew this year in 2020 anyway, the Shinedown was going to be touring because they'd work on a new album. I knew there'd be enough time to kind of planning stuff like, hey, maybe you move to USA, or we get a place up in Canada just so I can start building up my accreditation to getting the dual passport citizenship type stuff, or vice versa. But yeah, it's just kind of taking it day by day with everything. Like, our relationship is super strong right now, and it always has been. And I I think the first thing will actually just be getting to actually hug each other, kiss each other, because it's been too long. Yeah, like it's just, we have plus, like, because every time like a new country opens up with the pandemic, like, oh, we can fly there. But I'm like, oh yeah, I can get there, no problem. But you're gonna have to spend 45 days in a wooded ark outside your country because they don't want to let you back into your home. Yeah, so we're always looking at stuff. We're always trying to create these new things where we can put on paper. Like, oh, we should go back to because one of our great trips we did went to Banff. She took me up there. We had a great time and all that stuff. So we always create these new dates and stuff like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, I'm going to come to this show, or hey, do you know this person on this tour? I'd like to go to this show, or like this type of thing. So it's like we have that. We like to create these memories, at least put them on paper, because it's a cool kind of thing to kind of look forward to outside the normal relationship type stuff.
It sounds like a relationship bucket list almost.
Yeah, no, I think there's certain stuff. I mean, it's actually become a cool thing to do. I mean, I've always wanted to go on a hot air balloon, but I would always have this deep fear of like the thing just torching out and plummeting to the ocean. So there's stuff on the bucket list I would probably not want to put on there just because she'd be like, oh yeah, let's do it. I'm like, oh God, no. So yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Nice. Well, what would be just your last wind up piece of advice that you would give to people as it pertains to relationships?
Man, this is breaking a sweat out here on this podcast. No, this is a super cool question because again, I've never asked these, and I love the fact that I'm not prepared to ask them or answer them. I would say that in life, there are going to be some really dark days. There'll be some really bad days, whether it's personal health, family health, all this stuff. But if you're with your significant other, married, dating, whatever, don't you lean on them for support. But if you are going through a bad personal day with a family member or something at work or something, don't bring that home and expect that significant other of yours to carry that baggage too. And don't lash out at them with your anger or whatever. Yes, they're there for support, but you have to respect them enough not to drag them into what you're dealing with in that sense. I've seen a lot of people kind of, what's that saying? Don't bring work home.
Right.
And I think that there's something really to that. You would know as a cop, like the stuff you see, and I'm just like, and I used to be in law enforcement. The stuff you see is totally different than what I saw, and you have to bring that home and go back to it the next day. But you also have to spend time at dinner or at the house doing normal family stuff with your partner, and you're kind of like, how do you lash out? And I'm sure you've heard you lashed out or had a shitty day and brought that home, and that's not fair to your partner either. I think the best thing to do is talk about your feelings and put it out there, and that's how the best way to support you. Just getting home screaming because you had a tough day, you witnessed a domestic and the victim died, or there was a police shooting and your partner got shot, or whatever it is. That's not fair to your partner. Yes, they understand what you do for work and what you're surrounded by, but you have to. There has to be a smart way of bringing them into that. That way, they're not caught off guard by you having your bad day brought home.
I love it. I think the real keys that I take away from you today is be your goofy self and be selfless. Really be true to your heart and give to others.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's so easy to take, but just being yourself, you don't realize what you give someone else that's having a bad day or needing to hear your advice. And obviously with your podcast, somebody can listen to these episodes you're doing and be like, man, I didn't know I needed this today. And I think that's the most important thing someone can ever say to you is, I didn't know I needed this. And that's a super cool thing. I think you're going to do awesome things on this podcast.
Thanks, John. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me today and sharing some things that you have never shared before.
Yeah, never.
I'm excited that I made you sweat a little with some of these questions. That's been pretty cool for me because I know you're a pretty seasoned host and guest here.
Yes. So, it was super rad. I think I love it. I'm excited to see who else you bring on this podcast. I want to see some other people in the hot seat.
Yes. So, and you will see some other people in the hot seat coming up very soon. So,
Love it.
John, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your travels that are coming up in a couple weeks, and hopefully you and Aaron will be together again very, very soon.
Love it. And you can come out to a show too, so we'll have fun.
Fantastic. Sounds
Awesome.
great. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed the conversation I had with John. I know I learned a ton about him, a ton about the success of long-distance relationships, and what you can do to have success in your own relationship, whether long-distance or not. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. And remember, you are worth it.